Okay, so next I just want to add one last thing to this, and this is going to be probably the last example for this whole set of slides. This should cover the basics, which is really what I wanted to show you for GUIs. And so I want to add a drop-down component that allows me to select this plot line type. So it's just another level of complexity I'm adding to this GUI to allow the user to select what type of line is used in the plot of the sine wave. And so I'm going to go add that. I'm going to show you, and I want to show you how to manipulate. Just give you another example of adding another component and going and analyzing, all right, how do I manipulate that and add it to the rest of my code? Let's go do that. And I want to have the same functionality I did before with the line color, and I want to be able to change it dynamically as the app's running and not have to hit the plot button to actually change the style either. Let's go do that. Let me open up MATLAB. All right, and so I've got this app open so to add this other iteration. So in the common component library, I can grab this drop-down right here. And I'm just gonna do some quick aesthetic change. I'm gonna bring this up above. I'm gonna pull this down a little bit and center it with the color component, the radio button component. And so I'm going to click on this drop down and see what exactly, if I double click this, it shows me my different options I could choose. So in this case, I just have a drop down that'll let me choose option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. So I'm going to change this drop down title to be line style. And then I want to change my options. So I can center this again. I want to change my options. So how do I do that? So if I go in my inspector like normal, I can see how do I change what these options are. And so there is an items drop down here, which includes, if you notice, the same as my options in my drop down menu. So if I go in here, it would make sense that I could go and change this. Let's go change it. Let's have the first one be solid, the second one be dotted, the third one be dashed, and the fourth one be dot dashed, which is the dot dash kind of line style right there. And so now I've got 4 line styles that match up naming wise with the styles included that I can use to change my plot. And so now I haven't tied this into the rest of my code, so at this point it should be no surprise to you that it's not going to change anything. I'm going to use the same frequency I was using before, just a random amplitude on it. And if you notice, if I change this to dotted, I can change the color dynamically, right? That's what we did in the last video, is I can change this as much as I want, and I don't have to replot it. But if I change the line style, it's not doing anything. Well, that's because I haven't added a callback, or I might not even need to add a callback at the start. But I haven't done anything here in this with this drop-down menu to tie it into the rest of my code. So I want to go through it in the same steps I did for the radio button. Let me go add this component to my initial callback that's basically for the plot button, right? I want to include it at least there, so that when I go and do my first plot, I can choose the line style. And so if you've noticed, whatever is selected here, if I click dashed, and I pop out, my value includes what style I chose. And so I can do app.lineStyleDropdown.value will hold the text for whichever line type I have chosen. So what I can do is I can use, if I roll down to my plot, I can use this same logic here that I used basically, but I can do it for my app.lineStyle dropdown. And I'm gonna do line type is equal to app.lineStyleDropdown.value. And so this is holding the string that I chose that shows me what type of line what line type I want to use in my plot. And so now I can go in and I can change my app.h.line style, right? And so now I have 4 different options. I have solid, dotted, dashed, and dot dashed. And so now I want to use the string compare function. I remember I used that in the last video as well. So if string compare comparison between line type and solid. So basically, if my line type is equal to solid, I'm going to change my line style to be just a normal line. And now I can copy and paste this and just start adding it for the different cases, right? I have 4 different cases. The second case is for dotted. And now I can do app.h.line_style is equal to the dotted, right? So this is the symbol for a dotted line in my plot. And remember, this app.h is that global property I created, but in this case, it's holding in the values for my plot line, right? It's holding in all the properties, basically the entire class of the plot line. And so that's why I can do app.h.line_style, because this h is already defined as a plot line. And so I can do the same thing for this next else if. That's going to be for dashed. And this is going to be a dashed line. And the last one is going to be an else if. And I can check is dot dashed. So I want to make sure, I want to compare it to see if it's dot dashed. If so, then include this. And then I'm just going to make an else. If none of these are true, just make it solid. And I need to change these colors to line styles. That's one of the problems with copying and pasting. Okay, and so now I have gone in and added some logic to check which dropdown is selected. And then when I hit plot, it'll check which dropdown is selected and change the line accordingly. So let's run it and see if I was successful. Let's start with a solid line. Bring this up to 40 and just to 3.14 to test it. Okay, so it's solid. It's still changing the color. And if I change it to dashed and hit plot, look, it changed my line to dashed. I could change it to dotted. Click enter. I can change it to dot dashed, and now it's dot dashed. So now I'm able to select my line style. But remember, the next step is going to be to do it so that I don't have to hit plot. I want to make this have the same functionality as this color. I want to be able to change it dynamically. So if I change it here, I don't have to go and click plot again in order to change it to a dashed line. Let's go do that. So you remember, the way I have to do that is I need to add a callback for this dropdown. And so it will be the value changed function, which means when this is changed, I want to add some sort of functionality. I want to add some sort of MATLAB code in order to change the entire app. So let me go and add a callback. And so the nice thing is that I can actually just reuse this code. I can go in, just like I did here, I can go in and reuse this code here. Now have it check whenever that dropdown gets changed. I can have it check. I need to redefine line type here because that's not a global parameter. But because I've already created this global h parameter, I can check my line type using the app.line_style dropdown.value. So it's basically me checking which one of these is selected. And then I use that string compare function to check which of the 4 choices it is, and then just apply applying this line style to the entire app line style, basically. So remember, I added this property in the previous example. I'm going to go in and change my line style. And because that's a global property and I've already created my plot, it's going to allow me to change this dynamically. And so what this will do is once it's already plotted and I go and change that dropdown, this function will get run, which will change app.h, which app.h, remember, is the variable that holds the value for that line. And so when I go to run it now, I can go in and I can start it off with a dotted line, a blue dotted line, give it some amplitude. And so now you see how it's now a dotted line. I can go and change it to a solid line. And see it actively updates because that app.h is holding in all of the properties and all of the data. Oh, I'm messing up my plot. Let me rerun it. It's holding all the data for my plot here, right? It's holding h is, because I said h is equal to plot xy, it's holding all of the data, including all the properties, and now I can go and change the color and the line style however I want to in this plot. And so there, I gave you another example. Hopefully now you're understanding how to use these properties and callbacks to this point. And so hopefully you submitted your in-class problems. If not, maybe some of these examples have helped. And so I want to talk you through one last thing before we close the book on GUIs and you can start working on your homework and hopefully have enough to do that. So I'm going to talk about this last slide here. And so there's two other callbacks you can use. I'm not really going to mess with them too much. I just want to tell you that they exist in case you ever need to use them. And so there are two. There's a startup function and a stop function. It's a UI figure close request function. And so you can add in code and add these callbacks that if you want to run code if you start the GUI or run code if you close the GUI. And that might be if you want to load any data from the workspace or if you want to save any data to the workspace, for example, right? You can do that on startup, which meaning when you hit play, you run the startup function, or when you hit close, like when you click the close window, right? You can run the UI figure close request callback. And this can be useful. I just want you to know that they exist in case you're wondering, all right, I want to do this thing, but like I don't know if this exists. Here, you know they exist. You can go look for them, and here's the names right here: startup function, UI figure close request. You can go search the documentation, figure out how to use them. And I just want to tell you too, those exist for Simulink. I know at the very beginning of this, I said a lot of these callbacks they do exist in Simulink as well. I didn't show you them, but everything I've taught you here, you can use in Simulink as well. You can add a startup function callback in a Simulink block. You can add a UI figure close request callback in a Simulink function block, or a Simulink subsystem block, or any mask or anything. And you can add those. You can add as many callbacks as you need for if things get running. It works the exact same as it does in this app developer. And so if there's any interest in that, maybe let me know. I know this is the end of the class, right? You got to this end of the video. But in case you're curious on that, it's not going to be anything you're tested over. If you want me to show you how to do that in Simulink, just let me know and I can add a video on that as well. And so with that, I think this is the end of the lectures for the semester. There'll still be one more, at least one more video. Maybe I'll split it up into two for the two examples for your in-class problem.